Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Has the roll call been taken?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Members committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for items on the agenda? Seeing none. We have no presentations or delegations. We just have one item for consideration. Can I get a mover and a second to put item 4.1 on the floor? Moved by Councillor McCurry, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Discussion. Councillor McCurry.
Sure, thank you, and through you to staff. Page 2, I'll read from the report. The draft budget approved by PSC includes approval of a decision package. I wonder if somebody could tell me what a decision package is. I've not seen this language previously.
Through you, Chair Martin, to Councillor McCreary, Joelle Daniels, Commissioner of Corporate Services and City Treasurer. The decision package is synonymous with what the city previously considered an unmet need. So it's an additional service enhancement that was added to the budget. But we do have staff from the County of Brant here that could answer any detailed questions about that decision package.
No, I was just looking for explanation of that language. It reminded me a lot of the phrase value proposition.
Yes, Carpenter, did you have your hand up?
Yes,
I
Mr.
thought
Chair,
I saw
thank you.
that.
Through you to staff. I noticed in the report that we get the funding a year later from the province, in some cases 2 years or a year and a half later, when they fund their 50% or 48%, whatever that works out to be. And I know it's explained in the presentation, but could we have it more clearly defined when the revenue flows forward as income for that budget year, so we know that even though that's probably going to be used up for other needs, we would see it identified more clearly. Is that possible?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Carpenter, I'm going to ask the County Treasurer, Heather Mifflin, to come up and she can speak better to how the province funds paramedic services.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm Heather Mifflin, Director of Finance Treasurer of the County of Brant. So the province, how they fund it, every year we have to submit the previous year's budget for, and they use that as the basis of the budget for the following year's funding. So they simply take the in this case, take the 2023 budget as approved, and they will fund 50%, and that will be our funding for 2024. So if there's any additions within that year, it only gets partially funded in the next year. Like you're always a year behind because you're playing catch up.
Yeah, I get that. What I'm asking for is there ability when it does get funded in the following year that we see it somewhere as income as increased funding? Because the funding's not there, it won't be there now, but it'll be there next year. So when it comes in, where do we see that?
It all just flows through the same.
Flows into a net budget number, but if it's possible, could we have a line item that shows that the province is paying this much money towards this budget from the previous year? I don't see it anywhere. I know it's there, but I'd like to see it so I know it's there. And it's so that, for example, if it's $600,000 that the province is going to pay the following year, that we see that $600,000 as a line item into the budget, even though we may have spent it on other things that we need going forward for the next budget year.
I suppose we could display it like that. It doesn't really flow that way. It's just the provincial grant comes in.
And just flows into the general revenues.
Correct.
And there's no way, and you don't have ability to identify it as it flows into the general revenues?
Yeah, it is just the one grant amount. It's not separated as to the, and it's just based on the previous year's budget.
But it's part of the government's funding annually.
Correct.
Right? Can we see it as an annual increase, that provincial funding then somewhere?
Councilor Carpenter, if you look at the budget for it, it shows that the provincial grants, the adjustment was 612,000.
Yes.
So that's the increase from the,
Yeah, could we, and it just says change, dollar change. Could we identify it somewhere that that's province's previous year's funding catch up or whatever that is? It just doesn't identify it. I knew it from reading
Yeah.
the full package, but it's not very clearly identified. I'd like to see it identified better, that's all.
Okay.
other speakers. Mayor Davis.
Yeah, I can give members bit of a lowdown what happened at the paramedics committee. I serve on it, as does Councillor Martin and Councillor Sicoli. It's a committee that oversees paramedics, although, as you know, paramedics is embedded into the county. But the governing committee is 3 members, city council, 3 members, county council. And the way it works is if there's a tie vote on a budget, then by default, it becomes a budget from last year. So the budget meeting, I was the only city member that was able to attend. The other 2 weren't able to attend. It was a special meeting. Originally, the budget was presented to us with the additions, which was the commander plus also some admin support staff, plus an unadjusted capital budget was driving about a 15% increase. So staff had made adjustments to the capital budget. Then we had, which reduced the impact substantially. And then the vote was on these additional staff. The position I took was that in view of how many taxpayers are finding it difficult to deal with all the inflationary cost increases, that we had to be very mindful, and perhaps this was not the year to be adding staff. My position was, I think, accepted in respect to the admin staff. They weren't approved, but the commander position was approved on a 3-1 vote. So now we're left with a budget impact of 10.9%. Without the commander, it's 10.2%. It's a difference of about $45,000 to the city. Am I still advocating for that today? I don't think so, because it's not a huge difference. It's not going to have a huge impact on our budget. And probably there are some other good considerations for accepting the budget that 3 members of the county council accepted in virtue of everything else we're doing at the present time with joint services. And I don't think this is the time to get into an oppositional position with the county in respect to this budget, which is a department they run. One thing of interest is that the province does not pay its share, its 50% portion of capital. So that's why we're trying to make sure the new ambulance station is leased, because leasing our operating costs, which the province pays 50% of. So I had raised at the committee, could we, with some of the capital items like ambulances, which are quite expensive, can we arrange that they're leased rather than purchased, so that the province pays 50% of those costs? And I think the county might be able to do it using one of their municipal service corporations, but there isn't enough time to do that this year, but it's something we'll look at next year that might make up for the fact that there is a 1-year lag in the province paying its 50% share. So long and short, I'm advocating to the members of the committee that we accept the budget as presented. The large portion of the increase is in the base budget, really driven by the decision to add 1 additional ambulance and staffing it full-time that took effect this past July. So in this budget year, there was only a 6-month impact, whereas next year it's a much more extensive impact. So I'll be voting for it.
Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Chair. Just through the staff, this $664,000 increase, is that a one-time thing? Is that something that's going to be impactful over the next 3 years since we're going into multi-year budgets? Or is this just something that's coming in for next year? After looking at the report, the only thing I've seen that kind of gets put into 2025 is a $122,000 annualized impact based on a new position. So just set some clarity. Is this going to be a $2.5 million hit over 4 years, or is it just one time? Thanks.
Through the chair to Councillor Caputo. Councillor Caputo, can I just make sure you're referring to table 1 in the report on page 4, which is the dollar change of this, is it the 644,626 figure? Okay, so that is
Yes.
just the change year over year in this, the net city share. So not looking at the gross paramedic budget, but when we look at simply the city's share year over year, that is an annual change. So it's not, I wouldn't consider it one time where those amounts are going to come back out of the budget in a future year. That is just the annual increase from 2023 to 2024. The budget has increased by 644,000. That's now in the base, and that will be the starting point for 2025 budget.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no others, I had some questions. The chart on page 5 of the one report, it shows the net cost per capita, and it shows Brant County at $64 and Brantford at 47. Why is there a difference when it's divided on a per capita basis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I've done a little digging into that number. It's from the BMA management study, benchmarking study. They use the FIR, the financial information return, as their basis for information. Looking into the details and comparing other comparators, it's not necessarily the best tool to do it because it doesn't work well for cost shared entities like we are. And then the report consistency of reporting across municipalities, even in the paramedic line, isn't great. So we'll have to look more, do our own comparison calculation and come back with some actual, it's a better measure.
Okay, so the BMA report is pretty much useless then, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying all of it is, but in this, when you're doing items with cost share where you're only putting your share in the Brantford side, and we have more numbers and different calculations, it just gets a little skewed.
Okay, and the cross-border billing, I thought that we were expecting that to go down with the addition of another full-time ambulance.
We'll defer that to Russ King. I believe he's online.
You there, Russ? There he is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've anticipated on the call volume. So last year in 2022, we had 31,000 calls for requests for service. And we also had an additional 2,000 calls that we used our other neighboring partners for. I think the exact number was 1,991. We anticipate that to be cut in half by 50% as we realized this year with the additional ambulance. The first ambulance started March 1st. The second one started July 1st. So you will see a decrease, but basically based on our numbers right now, we forecasted what it would be for the cost of this year, and we'll see a bigger decrease in cross-border billings for 2024/2025.
So I missed something there. Why is there not a decrease for this year? You're going to keep the numbers high and then give us a bigger decrease next year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, those numbers were based on our estimates running to the end of the year. The figures that when we applied this budget together was as of basically the end of June, when we started compiling our budget. The next ambulance did not start till July 1st. So we didn't have accurate figures on the decrease for December 31st.
Do you have numbers now that the ambulance has been in service for a while that you can make an adjustment there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will look at the figures. We have only figures to the end of September 30th as of right now, because they're 2 weeks behind when we get the province data.
Yeah, if you could have a look at that, that would be a good help, I think.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no problem.
And does anybody make hybrid ambulances to save on fuel and some of the maintenance?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is only one manufacturer that currently we deal with in all of Canada, which is Crestline and Demirs. They are currently starting to roll out electric ambulances, but they are not mainstream. The city and the county of Oxford went electric vehicles, which did not prove a cost savings at this time. But as through you, Mr. Chair, Mayor Davis said, we are looking at other alternatives, either leasing or electric to save on fuel, but we do not have those figures at this time for this report or this meeting.
So they're going full electric, they're not doing the hybrid step first?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we were just at a conference in the end of September, and they're doing full electric. There is no hybrids that they currently work with on the market.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Thank you. Item 4.1 carried unanimously on a recorded vote of 7-0. All those councillors voting in favor are Councillor Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt. Oh, Hunt's not here. Sorry. McCreary, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
And with that, we have no resolutions on the agenda. There are no notices of motion. Meeting's now adjourned.